When I was young, my sister would often dress me in her clothes, and we'd play together for hours. She was only a year and a half older than me, but she loved turning me into her sister for our little games. My mom never seemed to mind. She thought it was sweet that we enjoyed spending time like that, and it became just another part of our childhood routine. As I grew older, something inside me started to shift. I found myself increasingly drawn to the feel of girls' clothing, skirts, dresses, the softness of fabrics I couldn't quite explain the attraction to. It wasn't just about the clothes. There was something about stepping into that other world that felt right, even though I couldn't fully understand why at the time. But as time went on, things changed. My sister grew more independent and started spending her time with her friends, leaving me to figure out my feelings alone. Even so, the pull to dress as a girl didn't fade. In fact, it only grew stronger, like a quiet, persistent whisper I couldn't ignore, no matter how hard I tried. It became something I had to reconcile with something that wasn't going away. As I grew more curious, I started sneaking into my sister's room whenever no one was around. The thrill of slipping into her clothes, anything I could find, was irresistible. I'd stand in front of the mirror, carefully adjusting the outfits, and for a few precious moments, I felt like I was living someone else's life. But that wasn't enough. Soon, I began taking some of her older clothes and bringing them back to my room. Every night, I'd transform, enjoying the excitement and freedom that came with cross-dressing. It was a private pleasure, but it felt incredibly fulfilling. The more I explored, the deeper the desire grew. I didn't just want to wear clothes anymore, I wanted the full experience. I longed to wear bras, panties, wigs, makeup, shoes, everything that felt distinctly feminine. One day, I couldn't resist any longer. I snuck into my sister's room again and took one of her old bras and panties. When I slipped them on for the first time, the feeling was indescribable. It was as if I had unlocked a new part of myself. I felt not only feminine, but also beautiful, a sense of empowerment I had never experienced before. The rush was like nothing else, and in that moment, I knew this side of me was here to stay. From that point on, wearing a bra and panties became a regular part of my cross-dressing routine. It wasn't just a random choice, it felt like an essential part of the transformation. But soon my sister began to notice that some of her clothes were missing. She confronted me about it, and with a knot in my stomach, I nervously denied it. I told her I had no idea where they went, though deep down, I knew the truth. After that, things started to change. My sister became more cautious and began locking her door whenever she left the house. I was crushed. The thrill of wearing her cute outfits was suddenly out of reach, and I felt like I had lost a little piece of myself. But I wasn't ready to give up on my newfound identity, so I turned to the internet, diving into the world of online shopping. It was a revelation. There was a whole world of clothes, makeup, and accessories at my fingertips. I would spend hours scrolling through shopping websites, carefully picking out dresses, shoes, and makeup, imagining how I would look in each piece. The excitement of building my own wardrobe, of finding things that reflected who I was, filled me with a sense of possibility I had never felt before. It was as if the door to a whole new world had opened, and I was ready to step through. After much anticipation, I finally placed my first order: blonde hair wig, a white dress, nude sheer pantyhose, and a pair of black pumps. The excitement that bubbled inside me was almost unbearable. I made sure the delivery would arrive when my parents and sister were out of the house, so I had complete privacy. For days I could hardly focus on anything, my mind consumed with thoughts of what I was about to receive. When the package finally arrived, I was filled with a mix of exhilaration and nerves. I couldn't wait to get my hands on it, but at the same time, the reality of what I was doing felt both thrilling and terrifying. As soon as the delivery guy left, I rushed to my room, eager to inspect the contents. Everything was just as I had hoped. The wig, in particular, impressed me despite being synthetic. It looked and felt like real hair. The moment I slipped it on, I was taken aback by how different I looked. At first, putting it on was a bit of a struggle, but once it settled into place, I couldn't believe how much it transformed my appearance. Suddenly, I wasn't just playing dress-up, I looked like a girl. The long hair made me feel completely feminine in a way I had never experienced before. I looked in the mirror, and for the first time, I felt not only like I was stepping into a new identity, but like I truly belonged in it. The feeling of being feminine and cute overwhelmed me, and I knew there was no turning back. I slipped into my sister's old bra and panties, the ones I had secretly borrowed, and stuffed the bra cups with socks to give myself a little more shape. Then, I carefully pulled on the new dress. It was a bit tight around my shoulders, but I managed to squeeze into it, the fabric hugging my body in ways I hadn't anticipated. Next came the pantyhose, and I was in heaven. The soft, smooth feel of them against my legs was more than I could have imagined. Finally, I slipped into the black pumps, and in that moment, my transformation felt complete. I stood there, staring at myself in the mirror, amazed by how different I looked, and even more surprised by how good it felt. I couldn't stop posing, adjusting my wig, and taking in every detail. It was more fun than I had ever expected, and I was loving how feminine and beautiful I felt. With no one home that day, I decided to step outside my room and wander around the house, basking in my new look. Every step was an exciting thrill, and my body trembled with a new sense of freedom and exhilaration as I walked around. The heels clicked against the floor with each step, and I found joy in the simple act of walking. For the first time, I felt truly in tune with myself, as though I was finally embracing something I'd always felt inside but had never fully expressed. I knew this was just the beginning of my journey into cross-dressing. There was so much more to discover, and I couldn't wait to explore it all. As time went on, I began to dress up more frequently at home, experimenting with new outfits and accessories I had ordered online. My transformations became smoother, and I grew more confident in my feminine persona. I learned how to apply makeup with more precision, and my skills with walking in heels improved. My posture became more graceful, and I noticed that my movements were becoming more fluid and feminine, something I took great pride in. One afternoon, when my parents were away on a trip, and my sister had told me she was going to hang out with her friends for the day, I saw the perfect opportunity. She wouldn't be back until evening, so I quickly opened my closet, pulling out all my hidden girly clothes. I decided to wear a pink floral dress, paired with black pantyhose and my favorite black pumps. Of course, I couldn't forget my blonde wig. In about 10 minutes, I was completely transformed, from head to toe, into the woman I had always wanted to be, at least for the moment. I then spent another 15 minutes perfecting my makeup, carefully applying foundation, mascara, and a soft touch of lipstick. Once I was satisfied with my look, I felt an overwhelming sense of pride and excitement. I decided to take the transformation a step further and head to the backyard for a mini photo shoot. I wanted to capture this moment, to have something tangible that reflected the joy and freedom I felt in my feminine self. Stepping outside, I felt like a different person, fully immersed in the experience, and I couldn't wait to relive it through the photos. As I walked out of my room, I happened to pass by my sister's room and noticed that the door was slightly ajar. She usually locked it when she left, so it caught my attention. I couldn't help but feel a rush of excitement. Maybe she had forgotten this time. My heart started racing as I imagined the possibility of trying on some of her clothes. I couldn't resist. I quietly slipped inside, checking to make sure no one was around. I looked around, but at first, nothing caught my eye. There were clothes hanging in the wardrobe, but nothing too thrilling. Then, I noticed the closet door was open, and my excitement skyrocketed as I stepped inside. There, before me, were so many clothes, skirts, dresses, tops, and I was completely dazzled. The sheer number of options left me momentarily speechless. I couldn't believe how much I had to choose from. After scanning the closet for a bit, I finally decided on a pink pleated skirt and a white top. I took off the dress I was wearing and began the process of getting dressed. The skirt felt soft as I slid it on, and the top fit perfectly. I looked at myself in the mirror and couldn't help but smile. The look was everything I had imagined and more. I loved how it felt. It was so feminine and elegant, and for a moment, I felt like I was living in a dream. I couldn't stop smiling at the reflection before me, proud of the transformation I had created. My sister had an incredible shoe collection, neatly arranged on a shoe rack, with so many lovely pairs. I couldn't resist trying them on, But when I slipped my feet into her shoes, I quickly realized they were much smaller than mine. I could barely fit my feet in them, but it didn't matter, I could still fit into her clothes, and that was enough. As I looked around the room, my eyes fell on her perfume collection. I reached for one of the bottles and splashed myself with it. The fragrance was fruity and incredibly feminine, and I couldn't get enough of it. The scent seemed to complete the look, adding to the feeling of being fully immersed in this transformation. I felt like I was in a whole new world, and it was exhilarating. I spent some time taking photos and videos, capturing every moment of this new version of myself. After a while, I decided to try another outfit. I began rifling through her closet once again, picking out what I thought would look amazing next. But just as I was in the middle of getting dressed, I heard the front door open. My heart stopped. Time seemed to freeze, my body went completely still. Then I heard my sister's voice, calling out that she was home. Panic surged through me. I knew I didn't have much time. I quickly scrambled to remove her clothes, but I didn't want to be caught. I rushed out of her room, my heart pounding in my chest, praying I wouldn't be discovered. As I reached for the door, I heard it suddenly swing open. To my horror, it was my sister, and the moment she saw me, she screamed in shock. My heart dropped, and I was paralyzed with fear and embarrassment. I had been caught. "Derek, is that really you?" "What the hell are you doing?" she yelled. "You scared the out of me. Is this some kind of prank?" "I'm going to tell Mom now." For a few seconds, I stood there in silence, unable to speak or even look her in the eye. My face turned bright red, and I was consumed with shame, not knowing how to explain myself. She screamed again, her voice rising. "Are those my clothes? Why are you in my room? This is so weird." "I'm sorry," I whispered, barely able to get the words out. I tried to make a quick exit, but she blocked me. She wasn't letting me leave without an explanation. "You need to explain all this to me first," she demanded, her voice firm. She pulled out her phone and started taking pictures of me. My body went cold with embarrassment. I felt exposed and humiliated, standing there in her clothes while she snapped photos. I begged her, "Please don't take pictures, I'm so sorry." But she was too angry, her face contorted with frustration. "I'm showing this to Mom and Dad," she said, her tone cold and resolute. My heart sank even further. I had no idea how I was going to get out of this situation, and I couldn't shake the feeling that everything I had done had come crashing down in that moment. I was absolutely terrified at that point, and I kept apologizing to her over and over, pleading for her to understand. My words were stumbling, my heart racing in my chest. Standing there, dressed in her clothes, felt like the most embarrassing moment of my life. I didn't know what to say or how to make it right. Eventually, I found enough courage to explain. I've had this urge to dress as a girl for a while now," I began, my voice shaky. "It started when we were kids, when you used to dress me up sometimes. I didn't really understand it back then, but now, I like it. I feel more comfortable when I dress like this, like I can be a different version of myself." She stood there, silent, her expression unreadable. I waited, feeling every second stretch out. It felt like an eternity before she finally spoke, and when she did, her tone was calm but inquisitive. "Okay, I can understand, but I never imagined you liked dressing as a girl," she said slowly, as if processing everything I had just told her. "Answer me honestly, okay? Are you gay?" I froze for a moment, the weight of the question hitting me harder than I expected. I shook my head quickly and said, "No, I'm not gay. I only like dressing as a girl sometimes. It's not about being attracted to men or anything like that. I just feel good when I dress this way." There was a pause as she processed my answer, her gaze softening a little. I wasn't sure if she fully understood, but at least I had told her the truth. Now, I could only hope that she wouldn't tell our parents and that we could somehow move past this moment. She asked me directly if I had been wearing her clothes secretly, and I quickly shook my head. "No, I haven't," I said. "I bought a few things online, and I only dress in those." My sister seemed to think it over for a moment before finally saying, "Okay, I won't tell Mom." That was a relief. But then she added, "But I want you to promise me something. Never sneak into my room and wear my clothes again." I nodded, feeling a mix of guilt and relief. I promised her I wouldn't do it again. It was then that she surprised me by asking if I wanted to talk about my cross-dressing with her. I hesitated for a moment, but realized that she had already caught me, and there was nothing left to hide. Okay, I agreed, sitting down with her. We talked for a while, and to my surprise, my sister was more understanding and supportive than I expected. She listened carefully, asking questions here and there, but she didn't judge me. She even seemed curious and open about my feelings. At the end of our conversation, she told me something that stuck with me. "You need to think about this carefully," she said, her voice calm. "Is this really something you want to do? It's important to understand why you feel this way and what it means for you." I appreciated her honesty. It wasn't just a matter of enjoying the feeling of dressing up, it was something deeper, and I knew that I had to figure out how it fit into my life moving forward. But hearing her say that she supported me was a huge relief. For the first time, I felt like I wasn't entirely alone in this. After we finished talking, I felt a huge weight lift off my shoulders. I gave my sister a hug, and she surprised me by saying, "You do look cute as a girl." I blushed, feeling a mix of gratitude and embarrassment. It was one of the kindest things she had said to me in that moment. She told me I could keep the clothes I was wearing, and I thanked her sincerely. That moment marked a significant shift in our relationship. From then on, my sister was incredibly supportive. She even took me out shopping a few times, helping me pick out clothes that made me feel more comfortable and confident as a girl. Over the next few years, I came to terms with my feelings and decided it was time to be open with my parents. When I came out to them, they were surprisingly understanding, which brought an overwhelming sense of relief. It was like I could finally breathe freely, having shared a part of myself I had kept hidden for so long. However, even though they were supportive, I never dressed in front of them. It felt like a private part of me, something I wasn't ready to fully share with them yet. But with my sister's support and my parents' understanding, I felt like I had taken an important step toward living more authentically, even if it was still a journey I was navigating carefully. After college, I moved out and finally had my own space. It felt freeing to have a place where I could truly be myself, and now I dress up a few times a week whenever I can, even though work keeps me busy. But looking back, I know I'm incredibly lucky that my sister caught me that day. If it hadn't happened, I wouldn't have had the courage to talk about my cross-dressing to anyone, let alone open up to my family. I often thought about how many people struggle with this, especially when they don't have the same kind of support system I've been fortunate enough to have. I had heard so many cross-dressing stories where things didn't end well, but my experience was different. My sister's understanding, my parents' acceptance, it had all given me the confidence to live more authentically. One evening, while I was sitting in my apartment, reading a book in one of my favorite outfits, I received a message from my sister. She wanted to meet up. I hadn't seen her in a while, and I missed spending time with her. We had grown closer over the years, and our bond felt stronger than ever. We met at a small cafe downtown. She looked radiant, and as always, she made me feel at ease with her smile. We sat and talked for hours, reminiscing about old times, and laughing about how she had caught me that day in her room. As the conversation shifted to our lives now, I found myself feeling a little nervous. There was something I had been meaning to tell her. I paused for a moment, looking into her eyes. "You know, I'm really grateful for everything you've done for me," I said quietly. "I honestly don't know how I would have gotten here without you." She reached across the table, her hand resting gently on mine. "You don't have to thank me, Derek. I just want you to be happy, and I'm proud of you for being who you are." A warmth spread through me as I squeezed her hand, feeling a surge of affection and gratitude. It wasn't long before we were joined by a new face. To my surprise, it was someone I had met only a few weeks earlier through mutual friends, a guy named Miles. We hit it off immediately, and after spending more time together, I realized that I had developed feelings for him. The thought had crossed my mind, but now, seeing him in person, everything felt right. Later that evening, as we all walked out of the cafe, Miles turned to me with a smile. "You know," he said, his voice soft, "I think you're amazing, just the way you are, and I want to get to know you better." I was speechless at first, caught off guard by his words. But then, in that moment, I knew that everything was falling into place. For the first time, I felt truly seen by my family, by my sister, and now by Miles. As time passed, I grew closer to him. We would spend weekends together, exploring the city and talking about life, love, and everything in between. Slowly but surely, I realized that not only had I found acceptance in my family, but I had also found someone who truly understood me and embraced all that I was. One evening, as we stood by the water, watching the sunset, Miles turned to me and said, "I'm so glad you trusted me enough to be yourself around me. You're perfect just the way you are." And in that moment, I felt a deep sense of peace. The journey I had started years ago had led me to this moment of happiness, surrounded by the people who loved me for who I was. I wasn't just a crossdresser. I was Derek, someone who had the courage to be true to himself. And that truth had led to the most beautiful relationships in my life, starting with my sister and parents, and now with Miles. With him by my side, I knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, I had everything I needed to face them. And for the first time in a long time, I felt truly whole. The end, but really, it was just the beginning of something even more wonderful.